Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and my guest this week is the current Stride Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion, Ryzer. Come acquainted with his work since got back into Stride with the start of the year, and really enjoyed his work, and really happy to finally be talking to him. Ryzer, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate all the nice things you said about me right there.
My first question is the same question to every wrestler. Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was probably since like 2000. I was born in 98. I was probably a fan since like 2003 because I remember watching it as a kid.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I remember like the old school stuff, like the old school TNA when
Okay.
AJ Styles was like first coming around and Samoa Joe and all that. And I'd have to watch it. I remember I'd watch it like on a really weird time slot, like at 1 in the morning or something like that.
That's very interesting. You said that because so you were more of a TNA is kind of what got you more interested into wrestling, kind of more so than WWE.
No, that's just what came to mind.
Gotcha.
I definitely watch more WWE than TNA, but I do remember watching that like over at my dad's house and stuff. But no, I definitely watched more WWE than anything else.
Um, I mean, you mentioned AJ and Joe, who are some WWE guys that kind of stood out to you and kind of got your attention.
As a kid, I remember loving Batista. I thought he was the coolest guy ever. And then looking back now, I love like Kurt Angle and like Chris Benoit and people like Dean Malenko is one of my favorites now, but I didn't really understand who he was back then.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So how you born in '98? It's about 2000. So you're 6 years old by the time you find wrestling. Um, did you always think about becoming a pro wrestler, or was it just kind of like something you were a fan of, and then you used that to kind of pursue other endeavors, and then it came back to wrestling, or did you always kind of have it in your mind that you wanted to try this?
I had it in my mind for a long time that I wanted to. Like as a kid, I always wanted to like win the championship and all that. And growing up, I wanted to do it, but there was like a cutoff where I stopped watching it really, and then I just kind of got back into it again, probably around 2014 or 15 or something like that. There was a lull there from like 2011 to then where I just didn't watch it anymore. And then one day, I I didn't really think about becoming a wrestler. It just kind of happened. I was a fan of it at the time, and then one day I went home from college, and I came out of the back. And my grandpa was reading the newspaper. He's like, "Hey Eric, come look at this," and it was like a stride show, and there was going to be a stride show that night or something like that. And I went to the stride show, and then like 3 days later, I was at practice or something like that.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, awesome. So, during this lull period, like right now, freestyle wrestling is a big part of your character. Were you a freestyle wrestler? Did you do other sports? What were you kind of doing in that lull period when you weren't watching wrestling as much?
Yeah, that was mainly like high school. Um, well, I'd say I got back into it more like fifth in like 15 and 16.
Gotcha.
Uh, I was just playing football and playing like high school sports. I never freestyle wrestled or anything
Okay.
like that. It was something I always wanted to do, but my school didn't offer it, so it wasn't available to me.
That's a whole nother rant I could go on with schools in the area not offering wrestling teams, but that's this is neither the time nor the place. But so
Yeah.
you become, you play football, but this whole time you're just kind of focused on football. You're the wrestling dream is just kind of not in your mind at that time.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about it at that time. I was pretty detached, and then whenever I came back into it, I was like, man, uh, apparently I missed a lot of stuff here.
So you mentioned that you go with your grandfather to the Stride show, and from there, a few days later, you're at practice. What was it about getting to see that event live and in person that made you go? That kind of, lit the fire again and made you want to pursue pro wrestling.
Uh, I didn't actually go with my grandfather. I went with my buddy. He just told
Okay,
me about it.
gotcha,
But
gotcha.
I was getting back into it at the time, and I didn't know a thing like that was around. Like I had no idea Stride was a thing. I had no idea people wrestled in Noble or anything like that, or in Mount Vernon. Uh, Nobody ever gave me that good knowledge, I guess. So when I found out, I was like, well, damn, uh, I got to go now. So I went to a show, a Stride show in, I think it was in Woodlawn,
Okay.
Illinois. And I remember the main event, I think, was Jay Spade and Roger Mathis in like a street fight or something like that.
Ooh,
And
that's a
it
match
was
I want to
pretty,
see.
yeah. Yeah, Spade won the heavyweight title that night, I think. Yeah, he did. Um, and I was heading out, and I remember seeing some other like really funny stuff. Like I don't remember who it was. It might have been beautiful Brian Richards before he was beautiful, beautiful Brian Richards. But like he just knows how to entertain. And I thought, and then I saw Joey O'Reilly there too. I was pretty impressed. So I was like, well, you know, I was going there to check it out to see if it was legit, and it was pretty legit in my eyes. So first chance I got, I contacted the page and got stuff figured out, and I was there within like 3 days or a week or something like that.
So, what's you mentioned you felt it was legit. What was it about? Like you mentioned all those different names. Who did you talk to? Did you talk to Heath? Um, did you talk to him at the show? Did you reach out through social media? How did you go about setting up your the beginning of your training?
Yeah. I didn't go up to anybody at the show really. I didn't know how to. I didn't know like like how to act in that
Right.
situation. So I reached out over like the Facebook page. So like it was either like Sam, Red Daniels, or Heath that reached out to me, and we got talking. I think it might have been Red, and then we went to that whenever it was in the mall. I think, yeah, it was in the mall whenever I started training. And it was like me and Red, Dexter, Heath, and um, Willpower,
Mm.
and then I started bringing um, Kid Cobra down. He's not really wrestling right now, but he was pretty cool. We'd ride down together and ride back to Cape, where I went to college.
Okay.
And then like more and more people came coming in, like kept coming in, and it was pretty fun. And then we moved locations to where we are now.
What year was it you began training? You said it was 16 or
I think I was in college, so I think it had to be 17.
17. Okay. Um.
I believe it was either 17 or 18.
Okay. Um. So you mentioned you have the football background. You have an athletic background. Um. Whenever you start the wrestling training, and I've had other stride wrestlers on the podcast before, and they've mentioned that uh, Heath is a tough trainer, especially when it comes to conditioning and working out. And Heath himself has even said that. Was it a shock to you at all to kind of become start running those bump drills or start training, or was it kind of something you took to pretty easily due to your athletic background? What was that first day of training like?
The first day of training was me looking like an idiot trying to do an arm wringer.
Fair enough.
That's basically what it looked like.
But the conditioning side of things, you were pretty still all right at, or did that was it kind of like, oh, this ain't football, or what was that
No,
like?
I was in very good shape at that time, so it wasn't that challenging, but there were times where I was like, damn. I mean, Heath wasn't really as active as he was right there. He had other stuff to do at that time. He was still there quite a bit, but just not as much as he used to be.
Right,
Like with the people that got put through the ringer, like Red and Dexter and Brian.
right.
Yeah, but whenever he was there, he always dropped some knowledge bombs on me that just made a lot of sense when he said it because I never really thought about things like that.
Do you have any of the knowledge bombs you like to share that just were kind of like eye opening for you that really stuck with you?
That's a little bit of a tough question. I'm gonna have to dig through and think about that for a minute.
Fair enough.
Just like little things, like it would always be something that he wouldn't have to say a lot, and it was a lot in like the meaning behind what he said made a
Right.
whole lot of sense. But if you just took what he said at face value, uh, if you just didn't really think about it, you could walk away with not much gained. But if you understood what he said and how he said it, it made a lot of sense.
Gotcha. So, do you have any memories of your first pro wrestling match?
First match, yes, I do. Yes, I do. It was I looked like an idiot for one. It was like a rumble deal. It was at John A. Logan, and
Okay.
we'd have like these buzzers going off, and that's whenever people were supposed to come out. And I think Brian was right before me, um, and then a buzzer went off, and I was like, kind of didn't know what was going on, and they were like, "Who goes out? Who's after Brian?" I'm like, "Oh no, that's me." And I start sprinting out there. I go out there for a minute, and then I don't know. I haven't watched it back. Like I haven't watched it back probably since that night. But I just looked terrible out there.
um, so the name Ryzer, who came up with that? Just what went into your pro wrestling name?
I just thought it kind of sounded cool. I don't know.
Fair enough. I mean, can't argue with that. Um,
Yeah, I definitely wanted like just one name, not really to go by a full name like Batista.
right.
So, because I love Batista, so I thought it was a cool idea.
um, the one thing and that's kind of stood out to me is you said here that unfortunately your high school didn't offer amateur wrestling, but when you see a riser match, you've taken to you know quite a bit of the amateur wrestling holds in the matches very very well. How did you go about? Was it just through studying? Was it just training with that in practice? Did you train with somebody who had a background in amateur wrestling before to kind of hone that sort of part of your wrestling repertoire, so to speak? How did you manage to get like that, when you didn't have the background at your high school?
I've always been pretty good at like imitating what I see. So I'd like watch like old Dean Malenko matches and Kurt Angle matches and guys like that, Scott Steiner and stuff like that. And I'd just kind of take notes, and I didn't want to steal. I didn't want to like steal their moves really.
Right.
Like, I mean, I use here and there. I'll do it, but I want to do it all the time and act like it's my own. So I just kind of took variations of stuff like that, made it my own, and built off of that.
Okay. Um. So you mentioned you have your first match, you feel like you missed your cue, and you go sprinting out to a rumble. When did you feel was kind of like your turning point in stride? Because ever since I've started seeing you, you were the a badass guy ready to take the title, and having a tremendous feud with Axe. Uh, when do you really felt like your game kind of changed, and you didn't really feel like you were doing poorly anymore, or you didn't feel bad about your what happened in your match?
When I started, I was just kind of didn't really have any clue who I was, and then Ryzer came along, and I was with Wraith for a while, and that was probably one of my favorite times ever wrestling was with my run with Wraith. That
Uh,
was
tell
such a fun time.
tell us a little bit more about that for some of the people that maybe haven't seen it yet and can go check out the clips on the Stride YouTube channel.
I don't think there's a ton of clips, but I know there's a great like payoff match kind of deal. It was a ladder match with me, Wraith, Aaron Brooks, and Jay Spade at I don't remember what school it was at, but I remember loving that match because it's like when me and Wraith had dissension amongst the ranks, and that was kind of our splitting point because it was a ladder match, and obviously I was trying to help him retain his title, and
Right.
then an opportunity came along where everyone was down, and there was the ladder. I start shimmying up that ladder. He catches me, and then we have a little standoff right there. And I remember just loving that match and everything about it. But I'd say like halfway through that run is whenever I started to feel a lot better about wrestling because Wraith just really helped me out. We had a lot of tag matches, and it was just more comfortable getting into the groove of things when you had somebody there that's been doing it longer, helping you through.
Well, speaking of people that have been doing it longer, um, you're I don't know if the feud is completely over, but you've been having a series of matches with Axe Allwart. And I remember Axe from the AAPW days. I've been watching Axe for a long time. He's awesome. Uh, what are your thoughts of the program potentially still ongoing that you've been having with Axe?
I absolutely love wrestling Axe Allward so much. He's so good. He is so good, and we always talk about it. We're like, I think we should just take this on a tour. Just let's go main event around the United States really quick. Action Riser every night.
I'd pay to see it. I have paid to see it. Uh,
I love wrestling action. In terms of like in the ring, of people I've faced, that he's definitely taught me the most. And like after matches, I can always count on him to give me pointers here and there. But yeah, he's my favorite, and actually, probably my favorite match I've had was with Axe at the Pulaski County Fair, and I'm mad because nobody recorded these matches, but that was a hell of a match, and like we had like this group of kids that like chased Axe to the back because he started chasing me with his chain after.
I wish I could have
It
seen
was
that.
it was just a good. That was probably my favorite match I've had.
Um, yeah, and then kind of quick sidebar. Just very recently, uh, you're suplexing Axe on the concrete floor, concrete blacktop parking lot of 204 school, and I'm watching that, and I'm like, oh, I'm thinking it's cool, and then I'm cringing because I'm like, oh, Axe has been doing this for a while, and he's still taking bumps like that, so it's like, ah.
Hey, hey, whenever you know what you're doing, you can get put through the ringer and come out clean.
So that's a very good point. You mentioned that you've learned a lot from Axe. What are some of the things that you have learned from Axe that you feel has helped improve your game?
I'd say very like kind of having variation in the types of matches you have, because a lot of people just want to have the same match over and over again. The cookie cutter normal match, and I like going back and forth and establishing a little here and there, fighting up, and just going back and forth and just having kind of like a fight instead of a you know get beat up the whole time.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
so I love doing that, and then he's really helped with like pacing, knowing when to turn it up and when to turn it down and stuff like that.
um, sidebar from Axe, but also very recently you got to get in the ring with another one of my favorites from AAPW days gone by, and that's Gaylord. um, that was awesome. He been breaking the world bench press record, and there's not enough weights at the gymnasium and all that good stuff. But what was it like to kind of get to do something with Gaylord? Because he doesn't really get to come around as often as maybe he was whenever I was going to shows back when I was in college. So, what was it like getting to mix it up with Gaylord a little bit?
I thought it was awesome, and that day was actually the first day I ever met him.
Really?
Uh, yeah, that guy's hilarious, and I didn't really know what he did in the ring, but when I
Right.
got out there, I was pleasantly surprised at what I got to witness.
Um, kind of really piggybacking off of that, you've recently won the Stride Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Championship. What does that mean to you? What did that moment represent to you to finally be able to become the champion of your home promotion?
It feels great. I've been wrestling for, I remember now, I believe it was 18 when I started. So it's been over 3 years now, like 3.5 years or something like that. And, looking back and seeing the progression, just kind of making your way up the ladder and finally getting there and capitalizing on an opportunity. And I think it's going well. So I'm very happy about it and very grateful. And I definitely have my baby sitting not too far away from me, the belt. So
um, so I have listeners of this podcast that maybe aren't necessarily from Stride's home area. So if one of those listeners, we have some that live in New York or some that live in California or some that live, in Texas. If you were to try and get one of those listeners to want to understand who Ryzer is and what to expect out of a Ryzer match, how would you sell yourself to somebody who maybe isn't from the area that's checking out this podcast?
I'd say a riser match is, it's got its ups and its downs on the pacing. I definitely try to make everything look as, I try to make everything as straightforward and snug as possible. But I do like to entertain when I get a second. So I'd say a mix of all of those things, and I think my matches are pretty entertaining. But I
I'd
could be
agree.
biased.
I'd
I
agree as
could
well. I'd agree as well.
I could be biased, but I think I've progressed, and I'm still working on it. But uh, the only way I can go is up from here. I see it. So I mean, I could go down, if I get hurt or something, but I don't see that happening.
You're Again, you're currently the Stride Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. I know you're always going to have Axe kind of, be able to have him in the rearview mirror, but or maybe the back of your mind, I should say. But who are some other wrestlers that regularly come into Stride that you'd like to, now that you're the man, you'd like to defend that title against?
Okay. You know, uh, I can't have this conversation without saying I'd love to finally step in the ring with Heath Hatton because I have not before.
Really?
Uh, I would love to have a. I do have a match with SB soon. I'm looking forward to that. We have never had a singles match either. So I'd love to see Joey O'Reilly come back. Dexter Roswell, I haven't faced him in a singles match yet. So there's a lot of people that I'd love to step in there with. I definitely got to throw Roger into the conversation because we have not went 1-on-1.
I'm wanting to see all these matches now because I didn't know you never wrestled Heath or Dexter or Roger.
uh, I don't think I've ever had any type of match with Heath. Dexter, I might have been in like a fatal 4-way tag or something, but I want 1-on-1. I like 1-on-1 matches, and that's what I want to continue to do. Uh, we could throw we could throw some triple threats and fatal 4-ways in there too, but I just like the old school 1-on-1. Let's see what you got. That's the type of match I like, really.
So those are the people you'd like to defend your title against. What are your goals? Maybe other than those individuals you name, what are your goals for the year 2021?
Um, I'd say I'd like to. Well, I didn't quite walk into the year as champion, but I definitely want to walk out of the year as champion. And I'd love, since I'm the guy with the belt, I'd love to bring more attention to Stride Pro Wrestling and hopefully draw some more crowds and everything, make it more of a recognizable brand. And then just put on great matches every show. I never really want to leave the ring thinking that my match wasn't entertaining because I've had a few of those, and I think about it on the ride home, and I'm like, man, and then I just watch it over and over again. If it's recorded, I'll watch it over and over again and look and see what I could have done where to make it better. Where I just whenever I have a match, I watch it at least probably 20 times over.
That's okay. It's very interesting you say that. How much studying of your own work and other people's do you usually do? 'Cause that's something I've never really asked anybody that, but like that has to be a big part of your development as a pro wrestling is studying.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd say it's one of the most important parts of becoming a wrestler is just understanding, even if you're not, um, if even if you're not the most exciting showman of a wrestler or the most technically sound or you're just green or something like that. Nothing's going to help you better than either getting out there and doing it in front of a crowd or just studying someone else do it or yourself and just taking notes from that and just adding to your repertoire as you go. And that's just how you progress and how you get better.
What has been the most rewarding thing about being a pro wrestler to you?
Uh, the most rewarding, I'd say just people coming up to me after shows or before shows and saying, like, oh, you did so great out there, getting messages, man, we're such a big fan, or anything like that, or I can't wait to see your match. It's just very, it makes you feel good inside. You always got to stay humble and stuff, and always thank them, and because without them, I don't exist in that sense. So I'm just happy I can entertain, and people like what I do enough for me to keep doing it. So
Awesome. So we're gonna have to have you back at some point in time because we've only really scratched the surface of just what you're going to be in stride and in pro wrestling. So if you're open to coming back, uh, down the road after you've defended that belt a few more times, I'd love to have you back. Um, do you have any public social media for any fans that would want to look you up? Do you have any matches that are on the Stride YouTube channel that you would want a new fan to check out? Floor is yours to let them know.
Yeah, let me look at our YouTube and see which ones are up there. Definitely the most recent one with Axe at 204. I think that was a pretty good one.
It
Uh,
was.
wrestling Daniel Wrestling Daniel Eads the other day. I think it was, I can't remember if it was Rising Up or Mayday, one of those two. I think it was Rising Up. I wrestled Daniel Eads, and I think that was a really good one. Obviously, the one in Pulaski County, if that one was filmed, I'd love to see that one again. But unfortunately, that is nowhere to be found. And I think I've looked about everywhere for that one.
There might be one random person with it like on their phone or something.
Yeah, and then you can see me versus Wraith, Chase Pate, Aaron Brooks in the ladder match. Me and Wraith are sporting our matching dashikis, so that's always a good sign that something good's about to happen.
Well, I really appreciate you. Really appreciate the work you put into being a pro wrestler, and I'm enjoy seeing you wrestle, and I only hope it's onward and upward for you. And I thank you for being on the show, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Stride show.
All right, hey, thank you for having me on. Anytime you want me on again, I'll be more than happy to come back. Um, and then maybe one day I can see you step in the ring too.
Uh, might have to take a rain check on that one. I'm not so sure about stepping in the ring at my age now, but definitely, definitely an intriguing proposition. But want to thank everybody for giving this a listen. Definitely check out the match she listed. They're all on the Stride Pro Wrestling YouTube channel. Uh, I'll have that in the description box below. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of pro wrestling, but from world comic books, gaming, anime, and all things geek culture. Follow me on my social media pages, facebook.com/athleticgeeka9, Twitter athletic_geeka9, Instagram athleticgeeka9, and I am on Patreon if you'd like to help improve the channel financially, patreon.com/athleticgeeka9. Check out Ryzer, check out Stride Pro Wrestling, and we'll see you next time.